Most artists think that shadows just happen when you start painting or drawing, but Baroque painters, they designed the shadows first. To them, it was like staging a theater play before the actors show up. I'll show you how I plan dramatic light and shadow play in a simple graphite drawing, just the way Caravaggio and Rembrandt did centuries ago, before they touched paint. So this is not about copying what you see, this is about designing what you want people to feel. So here's what happens when you follow the reference photo too closely. You will get realistic shadows. And it's good, anatomically correct, technically fine, and completely boring. And the problem is you're copying what you see instead of designing the drama. You're a copier, not a director. And Baroque painters understood something very well, something that most tutorials ignore. Shadows happen not where the light hits the surface. Shadows are about the story you want to tell your viewer. And if your story needs a face or hand emerge from the darkness, then what do you do with the rest? You sacrifice it. You just let it die. That's not cheating. That's theater. So a couple of years ago, I painted this. And this is my oil painting, Scorrere del Tempo. The Passage of Time. I made it in Florence for an exhibition. Baroque composition, dramatic light, the male figure emotion, everything I like. But before I touched the paint, I planned the shadows. I needed to know where the light would leave and where the darkness would swallow the rest. And that's what we're doing today, but in graphite. It's much harder in graphite, and I do it on purpose so that you can see the design process without the destruction of color. Now look at this Caravaggio, and if you squint, and you should, if you're a painter, you will see one connected shape of light, the face, the shoulder, or whatever there is lit. Everything else, gone, swallowed by shadow. Now look at this Rembrandt. The same thing. The light is like one deliberate shape. He is staging what he wants you to feel. Most of Baroque painters used tenebrism, which is the extreme contrast between light and shadow, which is an extreme form of chiaroscuro. And this contrast creates this emotional impact, I would say. And here's the secret. They created this contrast before they started painting, before the details, before worrying about the anatomy, before anything else. I think they asked themselves, where do I want the story to live? What is the story in this painting? And when they figured out where the light is, they protected this light like it was sacred. So for this video, I made 3 drawings, the same figure, the same model, the same pose, but different approach. The first drawing, this is how I would do a figure study when I would draw a figure on white paper. White background, very careful outlines, building up the tones very gradually. The second drawing is also the same figure, the same model, the same pencils, the same paper, everything the same, but a bit different approach. I added a dark background, and this is actually how I would normally work as well. Because when I start painting or drawing a shape, a form, a figure, an object, I need to see the relationship between this object and what's around it. Yeah, and third drawing is a full Baroque. Also, the same figure, the same paper, the same everything. But the dark background, all-consuming shadows, symbols, drama. This is where the story lives. So, let me show you how I made the first drawing. This is my standard figure drawing process. First, the outlines, then I mark the lines where the light meets shadow. This is very important. It's like mapping the terrain before you start shading. Then I blend everything very slightly to create a mid-tone, and then I go back and reinforce those areas where light meets shadow, working on the shapes in more detail. I left some parts unfinished just, because this drawing is to demonstrate the approach, not to show you the masterpiece. You can see the idea, right? And there's one thing I always do with these outlines. The outlines on the light side of the figure are always thinner, almost invisible. And the outlines on the shadow side, there is either no outline at all, or I make the outlines very thick, exaggerated thick, and this helps the shadow feel more solid, more present, more shadow. Yeah, and look at this drawing. It's fine, right? It's technically correct. You can see the anatomy, the form, everything is readable, but it's not dramatic. That's not what I want. I want full Baroque. I want full drama. And this drawing is not telling a story. It's just a good drawing. a figure on white paper. Now the second drawing, same figure, same process, but this time I'm adding a dark background. I start with a head and I dance from there. But when I'm starting shading the first object in a figure, I also touch the background because I need to see the relationship between the bordering tones. When I'm working on a light area, I need to know where is the dark around this light area and what is this dark. Yeah, and you know, the dark background always makes the figure pop more. The figure comes forward. The interesting thing is that when you compare these two drawings, the first one and the second one with a dark background, you will notice that the figure on a white background is much darker. The figure on a dark background is much lighter, but also more, I would say, dull. Is that the right word? Same pencil work, same values on the figure itself, but just because the background is dark, your eye reads the figure as lighter. It's always about the relationships between tones close to each other. Always. No exceptions. So this one, the second one, is closer to Baroque thinking, but it's still not there yet. Now let's look at the third drawing. In real Baroque art, the shadow is a decision, not what you see, but what you decide to create. And it's not gradual. It's there. It's committed. It's present. So, the third drawing, my full Baroque. Here's what I did differently. After I marked where light meets shadows, I also marked the large shapes of shadows right from the beginning. And I left light accents only on the head, the arm, the lower back, and I went very dark pretty much from the very start. And not just on a figure, on a background too. And watch what happens to those outlines in the shadow areas. They begin to disappear. The shadows are very strong. There are more of them compared to the first two drawings, but they are not dead. You can still recognize something in a shadow, and this makes these dark shadows very much alive. You see that I added a crown on a figure's hand. And this is where my Baroque begins. Not just with a shadow, but with symbols as well. And behind the figure, the curtain torn in two parts, and there's light coming from the cut. This is what Baroque is to me. All-consuming shadows that accentuate the parts of the story I'm telling, and symbols. And oh, I love symbols so much. You can look at a painting with symbols for hours, and every time you look at it, you'll discover something new, and you'll interpret this painting in a totally different way. I love Baroque. So what's the story here? I don't know. And I don't want to know, because you will read your own story into that and from it. And that's the beauty of Baroque symbolism. The ambiguity, that's the word? Now, some technical things I was refreshed on while making these drawings. First, this larger format, these are A3 by the way, this format is very difficult to cover with graphite pencils, very time consuming. Go smaller. Second, you have to work in layers. Even though I'm using very soft pencils, B6, B8, B9, I'm still using them in layers without pressing hard onto the paper. We don't want to ruin the paper. 3, try to avoid using erasers from the very beginning. They ruin the paper, and honestly, they'll keep you away from the real Baroque experience. Instead, use the negative space to correct your outlines. If a line is wrong, just, go darker around it. Use erasers only for highlights, sometimes for reshaping secondary elements like this cut in the curtain. With an eraser, you can create some suggestions of objects in a shadow, and this will make your shadow very much alive and interesting to read. One more thing, the real Baroque is not just about shadows, although they play one of the leading roles in a play of Baroque drama. It's not only about shadows, it's also about the pose of figures. They're always in motion, always twisted and intertwined, and the color choice is very important. The composition is pretty much always triangular. The symbols, of course. This all is Baroque. And for the color choice, you don't want to go into Rococo as I did when I was working on that painting. But it's a whole different story. Maybe I'll tell you later. Here, you're not looking just at the figure. You're looking at the mystery itself. A question, a moment frozen in time, where you don't know, is he running towards salvation or away from it? And that's what Baroque art does. It never gives you answers. It always gives you drama and more drama. Yeah, and if you want to see more of my process, more of Baroque techniques, more of these shadow secrets, then subscribe and turn on notifications. I'm Dimitri, a figurative artist in Amsterdam. Go make some drama on paper. Ciao, ciao.